Well, if it isn't already glaringly obvious, I am a big fan of the Godzilla movies. I have been since I was pretty young. I was like 8 or 10 years old, spending a summer with my grandparents in Florida. We went to Blockbuster. They had a couple of the original era films there. It was Invasion of the Astro Monster / Monster Zero, whatever you want to call it, and then Godzilla Vs Gigan. And I thought they were great. It was just like the dumbest fun. I love the creativity. I love how silly it was. They're great movies. But it was hard to be a Godzilla fan in this time because those movies were not widely available until DVD really blew up. And even then, they were still hard to find. I mean, a 10-year-old doesn't really know where to go to get movies like this. You can ask for them, but they were never in places that we shopped. So I never really got to see them except for on like TV. I remember seeing a couple of them on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I was like so lucky. I was like, oh my gosh, this Godzilla movie's on TV. Whoa. I did watch the 1998 Godzilla movie a lot, though. I had that one on VHS. So it was like the one that I could watch whenever I wanted. So, of course, I watched it like 100 times because I loved Godzilla stuff. It wasn't really until about 10 years ago when Blu-ray was really becoming like the new standard that I was able to experience the whole Godzilla franchise. I made an effort to collect every single one, and that was not easy. The whole journey took about 6 years. Some I was able just to walk into like, Best Buy, Target or whatever, and there they were. I'd buy it on Blu-ray. Others I had to import directly from Japan. And then I got lucky. The Criterion Collection, they released the Showa era films. So a lot of the whole first chunk of the franchise right there in one collection, localized for US audiences. So I get subtitles, which that did not come with the ones I imported. So that's great, obviously. So I have them all now. It's great. I got to experience the whole franchise, beginning to end. Super fun. But since the movies, when I was younger at least, were a rare delicacy, what about games? Well, there was only ever one that I had, and that was Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee for the Nintendo GameCube. I love this game. I played it all the time because, again, I'm craving the content. Godzilla's this rare candy that I can only enjoy in movies on very specific circumstances. But here's this game, I can play it whenever I want, so I played it a ton. Why am I bringing this up? Well, I was walking through a retro game store recently, and they had the Xbox version of Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. I've heard that the Xbox version is the superior one. It has an extra character, an extra map, and it's got some features that are exclusive to the Xbox version. Graphics only capable on Xbox. Bump mapping, reflections, crisp detail. Whoa, fancy. So neat. I never experienced the Xbox version before, so I'm in a mood to do Godzilla stuff, so let's revisit Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, but get to experience it in a whole new platform, so it's like old and new at the same time. Oh, let's get into it.
Godzilla, destroy all monsters.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't help myself with that one. Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee is a fighting game, either 1v1 or multiplayer options. It's monsters fighting in cities based off of real-world locations. You got like LA and Seattle and London and Tokyo. It's pretty cool. The buildings are destructible too, so the longer fights go on, the less of the city is left standing. Definitely a neat detail there. You have to use a combination of melee attacks, ranged attacks, or special moves to knock out your opponent before they can knock out you. Every monster has unique special abilities. Some have additional special traits like Rodan can fly, Megalon can dig, stuff like that makes them all a little unique from each other. So this is the main menu. We've got a number of things we can try out. We got adventure, survival, which is basically just endurance. You just fight to fight to fight. Your health regenerates minimally in between. We've got melee, which is like the versus mode, either with friends or only on the Xbox version. You can actually play with bots, up to 4 players. Then you've got team battle, which is the same thing. It's just teams. Friendly fire is off by default here, so it's kind of chaos. And then finally, destruction. Destruction, you just compete either solo or with friends to destroy the city as fast as possible, racking up points. The most important mode, though, is definitely adventure. This is where most of the time is going to be spent, because this is the story mode. It's also how you unlock all of the locked content, whether it's other playable characters or stages. So let's start our journey there. Alright, well, I've been straight shooting it thus far, just kind of getting us all introduced to what this game is and what it's about, but now it's time to get into the meat and potatoes of the matter. This game is pretty silly. What? I didn't add anything to that. It's just how the game is. Anyway, the story mode.
Attention, inhabitants of the planet you call Earth. We are the Vortak, alien invaders from a distant galaxy who possess an intellect and technology far superior to your own. We have come to seize control of your planet and plunder its resources for our own purposes. It's what we do. All Earth inhabitants will be enlisted to do our bidding. You are instructed to proceed to the...
I like the ooh music playing in the background.
We have seized control of your Monster Island facility and have unleashed all monsters under our mind control rays. Monster attack on your major population centers is imminent.
The aliens' appearances are clearly based off of the Zillions from Monster Zero, who have been featured in a couple of Toho films, so it's pretty classic to the franchise.
Not even your strongest monster can break free of our control and defeat the others. That is all. Am I still on? Oh. Well, we now return you to whatever it was you were doing. Idiots.
I also like the little bits of humor with it, where he's like, it's just what we do. Pretty cordial to the species you're conquering, like, hey, we're about to conquer you. Man,
it's what we do.
We gotta do it. It's what we do. It's pretty funny. There's a cutscene at the beginning and two at the end of the adventure mode. I won't show the end ones. I just wanted to talk about this first one real quick, just to give us some context for the adventure mode. But let's continue. Adventure mode's pretty simple. It's 8 fights, all back to back. The last of which is against either Mecha Godzilla or Mecha King Ghidorah, depending on which character you choose in the beginning. So it's pretty straightforward. It is difficult, though. You definitely need to learn how to play the game, or learn whatever character you're playing as, if you want to get through it. Because this definitely isn't like a traditional combo-based fighting game. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't combos in the game, because there totally are. It's just not the main way that you're dealing damage. It's more about control, because your monster deals specific types of damage with every attack it does. For melee attacks, you have either edged or blunt attacks, and then every monster has some kind of ranged ability called an energy attack. Energy is completely effective in every situation. It's the hardest hitting, biggest damage dealing move that any monster has. A fully charged energy attack is absolutely devastating. For the melee attacks, though, different monsters have different resistances or weaknesses to either edged or blunt attacks, and that creates matchups where some monsters are just woefully ineffective against others that have those better resistances. The last couple of things that are worth mentioning are grabs. Grabs are also pretty much universally effective. You can grab an opponent and do some kind of special throw for good damage. Some monsters have faster or larger grab ranges than others do, which definitely, again, creates like these matchup scenarios where just some monsters just really can't rely on the grab too much. The AI will be pretty aggressive with it too. If you're blocking and you're near them, they're going to grab you. So you gotta watch out for it. They definitely go for it whenever they can. But the grab animations are some of the funnier parts of this game. You can also collect the Rage power-up. It'll appear here and there during matches. It increases your attack power, so that's a good time to try to go for some combos if you can, because it'll do more damage. But it'll also allow you to do a special move. The special moves themselves don't do like a ton of damage, but again, it's all about maintaining control, and that's what they do best. So the best thing to do is just get in a couple of hits or a grab as you can, and then finish it off with the special move. Every monster has a different special move, so they're pretty cool to see for the first time. All this talk about matchups and effective moves and whatnot, it's making me think about Pokemon. I wonder.
The champions of tomorrow have begun their super hot battle. Fire blast! Whoa! Looks like a bad Pokemon choice. What will the other side do? Oh, the attack missed! Neither one is conceding an inch. It's burrowed underground. It can't make a move. The attack is still continuing. Big miss. Super effective. Gone!
Oh, goodness. Jeez. Okay, so let's take a look at the roster. What is a fighting game without its characters, right? So let's see what we're dealing with here. The game initially gives you 4 characters to choose from: Godzilla, Megalon, Gigan, and Anguirus. As you complete the adventure mode with each one of these monsters, you'll unlock new ones. There are 10 visible monsters you can unlock, and then there is one hidden one, that black icon that's on the character select screen. That one gets revealed once you've beaten the game with everybody. There is one additional secret monster that's only on the Xbox version though. Alright, let's take a quick look at each character, kind of recount my experience with each one as I played at them, call out some of their moves, their special abilities, how they fared against each other. The neat thing is the Xbox version I got has the manual. The GameCube version I've always had was pre-owned when I bought it and didn't have the manual. This is where I got a lot of the information for this, like the edged versus blunt stuff. Like, I never knew that until I read the manual, which is pretty cool. Every monster also has like little stats and stuff like that, although I don't really think that the stat little bars are that accurate, and I'll get into that with a couple of these. But also, I'm going to be using the move names as they are listed in here. So if you're like, where is he getting the term Thunderball from for this attack? Well, it's coming direct from the source. So there we go. The first one we'll do is Godzilla. Let's take a look at Godzilla 90s and Godzilla 2000s.
Adventure mode.
The 2 different Godzillas in this game are the 2 kind of characters that anyone can pick up and play. He's like the standard starter character for any fighting game. He's pretty fun to play as. He has a little charging move that lets him close gaps pretty quickly, giving him some good agility. The 90s Godzilla, his atomic breath is blue, and the 2000s Godzilla, his atomic breath is orange/red. Which is actually what they did for a couple movies in the Millennium series. Gives them some differences. Other than that, the 90s and 2000s Godzillas are pretty much the same. They do have one of my favorite moves is this jumping tail swipe thing. I love what it does to opponents when they get hit by it. Godzilla also has one of the most entertaining throws in the game. It reminds me of watching like a wrestling match. Wait a minute, making his big move right here. Oh my god, this is it! Perfectly executed. It's flawless! Flawless! Next up, we have Godzilla's oldest enemy, Anguirus, who first appeared in the first Godzilla sequel, Godzilla Raids Again. So when you talk classic Godzilla monster, doesn't get much more classic than him. Anguirus is a decent all-rounder. His main ability is that when he blocks, he turns his body around, and his spiny back acts as a shield, repelling certain attacks and even knocking monsters down if they hit it hard enough. His ranged attack is the Sonic Roar. It does stun if they're close enough, but it's not very far-reaching, so it's best if you're up close. Oh yeah, and I mentioned it earlier. Anguirus can roll into a ball. This move is called the Thunderball, to get around the battlefield really quickly and even exit into an attack. Kinda reminds me of something. Gotta go fast! This is actually a pre-order bonus for Sonic Colors. 10 years later, worth every penny, baby. Anguirus has really high agility. He definitely gets around the battlefield pretty quick. He's not the strongest, certainly not the worst monster. I had a fun time playing with him. It was a lot of fun to bait monsters into hitting his spike shield, for sure. His rage move is okay. Doesn't do the most damage, but it definitely gets the job done if your opponent has low enough health. Next in line is Megalon, a giant beetle with drills for arms. He can dig, and boy is there an exploit with that. Megalon is not the best. He does have a number of strong attacks and even a couple of good combos, but they have really big wind-ups and it's hard to get them off consistently. He makes up for this though with his special ability, the ability to burrow underground. He can also exit from underground directly into a grab, and that's where I discovered a little exploit. As long as you do one specific type of special grab, you can immediately burrow underground and be ready to grab again just as your opponent is standing up. Simply rinse and repeat for a guaranteed victory. Works in every application, guaranteed. Alright, this next one is where I debate what the little stat things say. We got Rodan, who's one of the really classic Godzilla characters, also from its own movie. But it lists Rodan's attack and defense as being like just the worst. But I'm going to show you proof that that's wrong. Rodan is one of the best monsters in the game. If it was a tier list, I'd say Rodan is top tier. Firstly, Rodan can fly, and Rodan can stay airborne for a long time, like almost to the point that it's not even fair. There's also two different kinds of attacks Rodan can exit flight from, and you can even use the ranged attack a couple times from the air, which is great for finishing off low health opponents. Rodan also has like the largest grab range because it lunges forward when it does the grab, which makes it more likely you'll succeed doing it. And Rodan's little special move with rage attacks has a pretty good coverage of ground where it hits. But mainly, Rodan has the excellent ability of closing gaps between wherever it is and the opponent with this charging move that hits really hard. A lot of Rodan's moves hit really hard, which is why I don't think that the manual is being completely accurate about the way it describes certain monsters. Now we'll look at 2 for 1 here like before with Godzilla. We got King Ghidorah and Mecha King Ghidorah. They're pretty much the same. There are minor differences, but let's take a look. The 2 Ghidorahs are very similar. There are a couple of minor differences, mainly their damage resistance. Regular Ghidorah takes more damage from edged attacks, and Mecha King Ghidorah takes more damage from blunt attacks. And supposedly, Mecha King Ghidorah also takes more damage from energy attacks. Other than that, their movesets are the same, but Mecha King Ghidorah does have one ability that sets him apart, and it's called the Tasers. He can fire projectiles that stun monsters and drain all of their energy. If you time it just right, you can really hinder certain monsters from landing certain kinds of attacks and leave them wide open for punishment or grabs. It makes both of them pretty formidable. And they can fly. They both have very good closed gap attacks, whether it be from the skies or just on the ground. Surprisingly nimble for how big they both are. It makes them both really formidable opponents in this game. Next up is Destoroyah, or Destroya, or Destroyer. So many of these Godzilla characters have like 1,000 names between the different English dubs, subtitles, what they can or can't trademark. Destroya is probably one of the best characters in the game because of one specific move he has. It's super fun to be the one using it. It's teeth-grindingly irritating to be the one on the receiving end.
Yeah. Where are the Power Rangers? I will crush them!
He always reminds me of a Power Rangers episode. I don't know why. It's probably just because he's like over-designed. He's got so much going on with his design. It's just, it's a lot to take in when you look at him. As far as a character in this game, though, he's probably the best. Mainly because of his move, the Horn Katana. It's an energy beam sword that comes out of his horn that he attacks with. It cannot be blocked at the cost of it using energy to use, but it doesn't use that much. You could probably get off like 4 swings with it before you're out of energy, and that's 4 guaranteed high damage attacks against your opponent. It makes him very just awful to fight as an opponent because the AI will spam this move, even to the point that when it knows it can't even use it anymore, it's still trying to. So when you finally unlock Destroyer for yourself, it's a ton of fun to turn this back around on the game and just go to town on it. using this move with reckless abandon. It's also because of how good it is, he's got my fastest completion time on the medium difficulty, just because it's just an easy move to take advantage of and just spam. It's great. Next up is the usual final boss of the adventure mode, Mechagodzilla 2. He's also probably one of the best fighters in the game. He's pretty good. Mechagodzilla 2 is a lot like Destroya in the sense that one of his main attacks, his best one, uses energy as opposed to just being a free move that you use. Destroya had the Horn Katana, Mechagodzilla 2 has the Plasma Grenade. That's what it's called in the movie, at least. The manual refers to it as the Plasma Finisher. It's not as easy to repeatedly spam as Destroya's Horn Katana is. You can probably get about 2 or 3 uses off of it before you're totally out of energy. But just like the Horn Katana, it really can't be blocked, and it does solid damage. Combine that with Mechagodzilla 2 abilities to fly and his finger missiles, which travel across the whole map and do a substantial amount of knockback, and he's also one of the best fighters in the game. He's just a bit sluggish, and a lot of his moves have big wind-ups, so he kind of becomes like a one-trick pony of using like maybe a jetpack thruster move with the Plasma Finisher, and that's kind of all he can really do reliably, but even just those 2 things are still pretty devastating. Alright, now we're at the last of the standard cast of characters, the ones that are visible even if they're locked. They have icons that are darkened out, you know that they're there, and that's Gigan. I saved Gigan for last, for this part at least, because he is the actual worst. Going by the manual, you'll see the whole edged versus blunt attack thing. He only has 2 blunt attacks. Everything else is edged or energy. And the problem with that is most monsters deal kind of 50-50. Looking at the same page, Rodan's right next to him. Rodan's got 5 edged and 4 blunt. It's a mixture, so Rodan can deal with just about any situation. That's true for most characters in this game. They have pretty much 50-50 blunt and edged. It's about recognizing what you have at your disposal against your enemy, because they have different resistances. But since Gigan has basically only edged, and his blunt attacks have super big wind-ups to them that they're almost unusable, he is just garbage, and I hated playing as him. Remember earlier when I said that Destroya was like the best character and I beat the game with him in like 12 minutes? Well, just to show this right away, Gigan, it took me 39 minutes. And that's because of 3 fights in particular. What do you think it's going to be? Oh, what do you know? It's the characters that resist edged attacks, which is all Gigan deals. These fights were absolutely horrible because all these moves are just completely unaffecting them. They suffer almost no knockback until they have low health. It is horrible. This is the most frustrating thing. Just like, look at this. I'm not even doing anything. I'm just tapping them, just slapping them on the cheeks. They're taking it. He's so bad. And ironically, his rage move is probably the best in the game. It's the only one that does significant damage. Enough to get knockouts if their health is low enough. Oh, it's crazy. So it's like they knew he was bad, so they gave him this crazy good rage move to make up for it. But man, he was frustrating to play as. And he has some interesting moves. They're just ineffective against so many characters in this game. It makes him horrible. Not fun. Didn't like it. Wish I liked it. He is the worst. Alright, now we're getting off the map. We're officially out of what the manual can tell us. We're at the secret characters. Now, for the GameCube version and the Xbox version, there's one visible secret character, as in the icon is like totally blacked out, but once you've unlocked everyone else, you'll see what it kind of is. And that's Orga, who is from the film Godzilla 2000 Millennium, one of the new Godzilla villains of the time when this game came out, at least. Let's take a look at Orga. Orga is unfortunately not too special. He's really slow, he's very short-ranged, he doesn't have much going for him. His unique ability is Venom Spit. He can like spit this stun venom. It's extremely short-ranged. but if it hits, it stuns a monster, but only for like a fraction of a second. It's really short. You can use that time to get in a grab or follow up with some other move. He does have a lot of really hard-hitting attacks. They're just really short-ranged. He's really only good if monsters are right up in his face. He does have probably, other than like Godzilla's throw, his is probably the next funniest throw. And finally, we are brought to the secret character, the one that's exclusive on the Xbox version. And this is one I was really excited about. This is one of my favorite Godzilla characters in general. And they were really celebrating the fact that he's exclusive in this game because he takes up like a third of the back of the box. But it's Mechagodzilla 3, as the game calls him, or Kiru, as the movies that he's in call him. Let's take a look. I was expecting Kiru to be a clone of Mechagodzilla 2, just like how Godzilla 90s and Godzilla 2000s are so similar, but I was surprised to see that he does have some differences. Firstly, he does not have the plasma finisher. He does still have the finger missiles, and he has like the jet dash and turnaround and the thruster moves and everything. His beam weapon comes out of his mouth, which is appropriate to the movie. But the biggest surprise to me was his ultimate move, the rage move. I did not expect this, but he actually has the absolute zero cannon from the movie that he's in. I thought that was really cool. I was not expecting that at all. So he's a lot like Mechagodzilla 2. He's got some differences. Instead of the plasma finisher, he has tail attacks instead. So he's a little more melee focused than Mechagodzilla 2 is. He's pretty fun to play as. It was definitely cool to mess around with him, and it was a huge shocker to see the absolute zero cannon in this. That was a big surprise. Kiru was also the only character I ever successfully blasted Mothra with. Forgot to mention earlier that you can actually pick up a power-up that summons Mothra, who flies around the arena and strikes your opponent, or rather the person that didn't pick up the power-up, with her energy attacks. But if you can manage to shoot her, she actually flees. Kiru was the only character that I ever managed to hit her with, which is pretty great. Alright, that's the whole roster right there, and my opinions of them. Pretty cool how each monster does feel pretty unique. They definitely went for quality over quantity with this game, because there are tons of other Toho monsters that could have been in this game that were omitted. I know that some were requested by the team that developed the game. They just couldn't get it to work. But since the roster's small, the characters all feel pretty unique. They have defined movesets and stats and advantages and disadvantages and whatnot, so it all feels pretty good. Last couple things I want to get into. Number one, the version differences. I was not expecting there to be as many differences as there were between the two, other than the obvious. So, like I knew going into it, the Xbox version has an additional character, an additional map. It's the Vortec homeworld. But there were other little things that I was not expecting that I discovered as I played each version. There are a number of small little weird things that are different between both versions. Firstly, even on easy difficulty, the GameCube version has limited continues in the adventure mode, where the Xbox version doesn't. That's what that little X3 thing means. It means I can fail 3 times. The Xbox version gives you infinite continues on easy. It's only on medium that you have continues. And trust me, I know that after the friggin' Gigan playthrough that I had to do, because I must have died like 9 times in that one. The other thing is that the AI on the GameCube version on easy goes for some of the power-ups, whereas on the Xbox version, that only really happens when they're on the medium difficulty, and even then, they really only prioritize the energy pickups, whereas on the GameCube version, even on easy, they're going for all the different pickups, health and everything, which is really interesting. So it's like there's different AI programming between the two of them. You'd assume that the Xbox version would be superior in this regard because it came out later, but it's actually not. It's different. It's so strange. The other really weird thing is that you could do any mode with AI on the Xbox version, but you can't on the GameCube version. I didn't realize this when I was first playing it. I only noticed it when I was scrolling through the Xbox version's menu, and I noticed that all of the multiplayer modes were lit up. I could choose them. That's only the case on the GameCube version if you have the number of controllers plugged in. If it's at least 2, you can choose those modes. If it's not, they're not lit up at all. That's why I was like, what is this about? So that's just really strange that there's this many small little differences between both versions. It's just so hard for me to digest the concept that one version supports multiplayer with AI and one version doesn't. That's such an odd technical thing for one version to have that the other one doesn't. It's pretty common nowadays for there to be like exclusive downloadable content. Pre-order this game only on PlayStation and get this thing for free. But you know, it's like a little insignificant pre-order bonus. But to have multiple modes locked out to you unless you have real human opponents to fight on one version, whereas the other, you can play any mode you want with the AI, that just gives the game more value. Like, that's just so odd to me. And the differences with the AI, too. Like, there's so much going on. The AI behavior being different. The Xbox One's truly a different animal altogether. Made it all the more interesting to go through. So, there's that. The very last thing is the thing I messed around with the most when I was a kid that I had a lot of fun with playing this today, and that's the cheat codes, because this game has tons of cheat codes. And going off of the back of the box, I guess you could find them online, because it tells you to go to this website. For cheats and hints, go to www.godzillagame.com. Before you even try it, it doesn't work. I've already tried with like multiple browsers and everything. It doesn't work anymore. But the game has tons of cheat codes. When I was a kid, this is like the biggest thing that gave the game replay value to me. So here are a couple of the funnier cheat codes that I messed around with today. The first cheat code is one that I did all the time when I was a kid, and that's to make the monsters very, very small. Oh my god, look at this. They're so tiny. I really can't figure out, though, if their hitboxes shrank, too. It seems like all the punches and kicks and attacks hit normally, but it also looks like the AI is aiming for where your center mass used to be when you were regular height versus where you are now. And that includes the military's little freeze tank thing, too. It shoots, like, right above your head, which is pretty much where your center mass was when you were normal height, which is kind of weird, but funny nonetheless. I used to love this cheat code for some reason. I don't remember why. I just remember this one being the one that I used the absolute most. The other one is my new favorite thing to do nowadays. This is a really cool challenge. If you ever get yourself a copy of this game and get some friends together, I give this combination of cheats the highest recommendation. It's the combination of 2 quad damage, which means fights are over in less than maybe 3 to 4 hits, and then invisibility. So everyone's invisible, and you deal 4 times the damage. This is the most dangerous game of hide and seek you'll ever play in your life. Not really fun to play against the AI, though, because they cheat. They still know where you are, regardless, which makes it all the more dangerous, I guess, to play against AI. But this one's pretty funny. There's tons more, too. You can, like, make the game black and white, give yourself infinite health, infinite energy, always have rage mode on, standard cheat kind of stuff. I mean, there are literally dozens of cheat codes for this game. It's pretty cool. This is a common thing back in the day for certain types of games. So, really fun to play around with this again. Revisiting this game was a really good time. I found myself with a lot more to talk about than I ever could have imagined, and I was also having way more fun with the game. When I picked this up to play, in my head I was like, alright, here comes this 5 out of 10 fighting game that no one really gives much attention to unless you're a Godzilla fan. I guess I'll put up with it. But I found myself having a lot of genuine fun, especially after I started to understand how the mechanics of the blunt versus edged attack stuff work. That kind of gave me a whole new perspective on how these moves work and how this game is like supposed to be played. It gave it a lot more value for me. And it was also really cool to experience the whole new version of it, playing with a new character, AI differences. It's been a fun journey here with this Godzilla game. If you're a fan of Godzilla, or just kaiju stuff in general, I would give this game my highest recommendation. It's just dumb fun. Like, it works really well. The Xbox version is definitely the more complete package for just so many reasons, but the GameCube version still holds up really well too. They're both really great. They have a lot going for them. I'm sure you'll find a lot to love if you're a fan of this kind of stuff. Even if you're a casual Godzilla fan, this is a good way to introduce yourself to a lot of what the franchise has to offer in terms of its style, its humor, and its characters. a lot better than I thought it was going to be. It's a great game. Well, that was a good time. Man, I got more Godzilla in me today than I probably have in my entire life. Definitely a funny game, but time to move on. So next time we're going to be getting into it. What the? Godzilla Save the Earth? I've never played this one before. No, that's enough Godzilla. I'm not doing this. We're moving on. We're moving away from Godzilla. Next time we're going to be getting into something a lot more different. What is this one? Godzilla Unleashed? There's a Wii version too? No, that's enough. I'm not... I don't appreciate the attitude, Bob. You've been on a downward spiral lately, and this is the latest example you're throwing this crap at me? I'm not playing these. We've already done the episode. You've been slapping controllers out of my hands, slapping me in the face. What? Because I didn't approve your vacation request? We are in the middle of filming. You can't take a vacation in the middle of the shoot. Wait until it's done. Why is that so complicated? Uh-oh. Request approved. Enjoy your vacation.